We're through this, we're also able to meet a lot of the immediate needs. So things like glasses, or we had a youth recently that they were looking for a job, and they needed their driver's license. So we were able to support them in accessing their driver's license. And being able to access different appropriate cultural supports and experiences through our programs. Um, for our relationships in the community, we are very fortunate in owning our own building, and so our tenants that we have in our building complement our programming and our referrals to the different programs that we offer. We are very fortunate to have really strong relationships with a lot of different nonprofits in the community, which both act as a referral source and wraparound services for what we refer out to the community. So it's a really strong web of support that we see. We also have a phenomenal web of local businesses that, unfortunately, through the pandemic, have obviously been struggling. But we are working with a number of our local businesses to help youth access the labor market, but also to be able to help provide a financial benefit to the employers by hiring a youth, where we're able to subsidize a work experience for them to help cover a lot of those initial costs. And also another relationship that we've been really nurturing and focusing on is under the TRC, is working with our Indigenous community and ensuring that we're, as an organization, that we are being respectful and understanding of Indigenous cultures, but also helping to prioritize Indigenous employment in our community. So this is a new phase for us that we're expanding in, but we really see the benefit in all the elders that we're working with, and the community relationships. Highlights for us, we've been able to have a larger budget, to be able to provide the multitude of services. And I think that really highlights what we can offer coming out of this pandemic, or as we go through these lockdown restrictions, is our community can really rely on us and access our programming, both from a client's perspective, as well as our business relationships, that they can have access to our work experiences to help fuel our local economy. One of the just moving into our weaknesses is we've went through some financial challenges over the last decade. The changes politically have affected the way that we do, obviously offer our services. We had approximately 40% of our budget cut over the last decade, resulting in a loss of 2/3 of our staff and half of our programming. However, because of us being able to own our own building, we use our rent to balance our budget. So that has been an asset, but it obviously is a weakness as well. Is owning our building, creates a lot of opportunities, but it also leaves us in a position where building upgrades need to be managed effectively during the rebalancing years. So this has created an infrastructure deficit, which is a reality that we have to face as organizations. Is when we're running public use buildings, the infrastructure is essential to be able to provide services. And if we aren't taking care of these buildings, we unfortunately run the risk of having, as we are experiencing, lots of leaks in our roof, and dealing with the reality of that. So the biggest cost that we face, as an organization, is our capital upgrades. We're looking at, our 46-year-old roof that is struggling, our HVAC units, as well as our current infrastructure for accessibility in our building. So those are our three major ones, and we're looking at anywhere between $350,000 and $450,000 in upgrades over the next couple of years that are necessary for us to continue our services in a positive way. What's stopping us? We know that this year the capital budget under the community facility improvement program has unfortunately been cut by 50%, and that's something that, as nonprofits, we really rely on. So I'm really optimistic that we are going to be, on board for that funding. But we know that that is essential for us as nonprofits to come up with $250,000 in a very short span of time. Is a difficult reality. It's difficult for a business, but it's difficult for a nonprofit when that's not necessarily our main focus. But that's what we're focusing on. Opportunities for us. We've expanded our programming, in October of 2020. This has created many opportunities for how we can facilitate options for participants and for local businesses. We've been also offered an opportunity to apply for additional expansion funding. This funding is focused on marginalized or underserved populations and centered around the economic recovery from COVID. So we're currently going to be applying for longer term work experiences. Our current work experience is a 360-hour work experience where we subsidize the equivalent of minimum wage. With this new expansion, we're looking at offering longer term work experience, 720, so we can follow and support youth for 6 months. Innovations, I think the biggest thing for us is we built a model of services focused on succession planning, which has allowed us to deal effectively with COVID, medical leave, closed cases, and sick days, so we can pivot as we go. I think the threats is kind of just a big one for me is there's more to just the deficit than just balancing the books. We deal with deficits, like I was mentioning, from us internally, infrastructure, but also in education, in health, in tech development. These are all factors that create a deficit in our communities. And unfortunately, and this isn't one side or the other, but we've, been growing up in Lethbridge, partisan politics has been a huge impact in this pendulum swing that we see over this last decade, and it's very challenging to navigate and to be able to provide the right services that aren't going to just change tomorrow. So we need to. So my viewpoint is, well, we need to start to learn how to communicate and work together more effectively, and be able to listen to the others, people from another viewpoint, to be able to move forward as a community. Last for me as a threat is lack of investment in post-secondary education. I think if you believe in something, you invest in it, and youth unfortunately will, if we're not investing in young people in, helping them get a foothold, in their career development, we'll see an exodus of youth from this province, which is really an unfortunate reality, but it's something that we have to consider. So it keeps my job going, which is a great thing. But as for us as a province thriving, I really think we need to invest in in our young people to ensure that they have opportunities to succeed and to help our community more. I will leave it at that. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Thank you, Trevor. And so, maybe just in terms of time, because I know, Jason, you have to bug out at 9. Maybe what we'll do is we'll go through all the presentations and make note of your questions, and we'll go back at them at the end. Is that okay, Dominica? Yeah, okay. Thank you. That was great. It's interesting to hear how dynamic your programming has been, and listening just to your challenges, right, of your infrastructure, because it's a huge burden, but it can be beneficial too. So yeah. Okay, Tyler.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. So as I mentioned in my introduction, I work with internationally educated professionals. So for my purpose, internationally educated professional is anybody coming to Canada with a college or higher level education. So this can range from a college diploma right up to a PhD. So I'll refer to internationally educated professionals as IEPs, or simply newcomers. So working with a very specific demographic over and over, I have a fairly strong knowledge of what the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are for this demographic. So the biggest strengths when working with IEPs is they're coming to Canada with very high technical skills. This can be from many years of experience in their professional fields. Very high education. Lots of newcomers are coming with, a master's or even higher level of education. Oftentimes they have been in senior management roles in their home country, oftentimes handling high levels of responsibility within their organization. So working with these very high technically skilled individuals comes with specific challenges, but also specific strengths for them in being able to access the labor market. For IEPs, they're also coming with very high transferable skills. In the home country of a lot of IEPs, there's more emphasis on easily being able to move within an organization to meet the organization's needs. In the home countries where newcomers are coming from, oftentimes having a master's or higher level of education really makes you one of the more qualified workers in that country. So it's oftentimes much easier to move an individual within an organization to meet a need than it is to go out and hire somebody new for that position. So this means that IEPs often can quickly adapt to a new position or role in order to meet the needs of that organization, which is a big strength when coming to Canada, of course, to adapt to a new Canadian culture, a new country, sometimes a new language, depending on where they're coming from. Some of the challenges then in working with IEPs is around soft skills. And the reason for this is that soft skills are culturally relevant. What is considered high soft skills in the home countries of newcomers could be very different than what's considered high soft skills here in Canada. So for example, some soft skills that can be a challenge for IEPs when they first arrive to Canada are things like individualism versus teamwork, giving and receiving feedback, both with colleagues as well as managers or supervisors, communication skills, both verbal and nonverbal, and a lot of other soft skills that we may or may not take for granted as being universal. Another challenge for IEPs is around Canadian culture, specifically in the workplace. Examples of this could be things like concept of time. Time, of course, is something that, or at least the importance of time, is very different country to country. What is considered on time or a reasonable amount of time to hear back from someone, it varies from country to country. Another big difference in workplace culture is the sense of hierarchy compared to more of an egalitarian culture. For a lot of IEPs, they're coming from countries that are significantly more hierarchical than Canada is. And how this affects relationships within the organization is very different for IEPs in their home country compared to here in Canada. Another workplace culture that is greatly different for IEPs is career management and performance evaluation. How IEPs are often measured performance-wise in their home country is much more on their technical skills. So their skills as an engineer, as an accountant, as a doctor, versus their soft skills. So the communication skills, giving and receiving feedback, working as part of a team. And so that transition for IEPs in terms of how their skills and performance is measured takes a lot of time for them to adjust to. So working with IEPs on developing their Canadian soft skills is very important for the long-term success in integrating into the workplace. Another challenge for IEPs is building and expanding their professional networks. So every time an individual moves, whether they are moving from Lethbridge to Calgary or across the world to Canada, every time you move, you are effectively resetting your professional network. Another challenge when it comes to working with your professional network is where they land in Canada may not be where they will stay long-term. They could land maybe in Calgary and end up moving to Vancouver, or land in Lethbridge and end up moving to Toronto. So for some of the opportunities in terms of the work that we're doing to help open up more labor market opportunities for IEPs is around awareness. Awareness is a big piece for both IEPs as well as Canadian employers. So for IEPs, when they first arrive to Canada, seeking support to learn about Canadian soft skills and workplace culture as soon as possible is very important. you don't know what you don't know. And for IEPs, they can sometimes first come to Canada with, high enthusiasm, motivation, and think that it'll be a very, very smooth transition into the workplace. And then after 6 months, maybe a year, realize that there are a lot of challenges, and then they will reach out for support. So if they reach out upon arrival, it will just make for a much easier and smoother transition for them. And for Canadian employers, learning to learn about the unique barriers to employment for IPs and how they can assist in the integration into the workplace. There are a lot of ways that Canadian employers can directly and indirectly support the integration of newcomers into the workplace. Two programs that we're running right now to help facilitate newcomers in entering the workplace is our professional mentorship program, which in my experience, is the best bang for your buck in terms of helping IEPs transition into the workplace in their professional field. So professional mentorship gives the opportunity for IEPs to discuss their technical skills with someone who works in their field. So even though I do a lot of work with IEPs around soft skills and general skills, I am not an engineer or a nurse or a doctor. So there's only so much support I can provide on the technical side of their profession. So connecting with a professional mentor is a way for them to discuss their technical skills and how those skills fit into the labor market here in Canada. It also, of course, helps IEPs to connect with other individuals in their profession or sector to build up their professional network, especially in a smaller center like Lethbridge. And, Lethbridge, even though it is growing, is still considered a small center. Networking is even more relevant for securing employment. Another program that we're running, similar to the program that Trevor mentioned for youth, is a professional practice program, or essentially a short-term work placement that allows IEPs to demonstrate their technical skills while practicing and improving their soft skills in the workplace. This gives IEPs the opportunity to gain valuable Canadian work experience and hopefully either secure a position after that work placement, either internally in the organization they do the work placement, or at least secure a positive Canadian reference to help them secure employment in another agency. So some of the threats for IEPs, in my experience, are cultural misunderstandings. So if we think of all workers at three different levels, the individual level, the cultural level, and the universal level, the interaction between these three different levels can be a big challenge. So for example, individual traits, essentially, the personality of everybody is different. And the cultural level, so the understanding that there are similarities between some individuals versus other individuals based off culture. And then the universal level, which is essentially that we are all human beings. We are all alike in some capacity. Now, cultural traits are learned, and therefore they can be unlearned. And generally, it is much easier to unlearn a cultural trait than a personality trait. The challenge is when employers or colleagues or supervisors will associate a cultural trait as an individual or a personality trait. So an example is giving and receiving feedback. Depending on where a newcomer is coming from the world, giving feedback in their home country is often very direct. And so for newcomers, when they come to Canada, they can sometimes be perceived as being rude or direct or in some way being a little bit difficult to work with. Now, some people will attribute this as a personality trait, that's just how their personality is, when oftentimes it is more of a cultural trait, because that is in their home culture how giving and receiving feedback is expected. And on the other side, when employers or colleagues or even newcomers will assume that a trait is universal when it is in fact cultural. So take, for example, things like appropriate eye contact, or when you meet somebody for a job interview, shaking hands. Some individuals may think that this is just universal, that everybody does that regardless where you are from, when in fact it is a cultural trait that is specific to either Canada or Western culture. So that is one of the bigger threats for IEPs. Another threat is simply landing in the wrong place. IEPs that arrive to Lethbridge with a professional field that may have little to no labor market opportunities is a big challenge. They have kind of two decisions to make. They can choose to move to another area of Canada that perhaps has more labor opportunities, or they can choose to try to utilize their transferable skills and seek employment in a different field or sector that does have more opportunities. So this comes with a few challenges for them in terms of having these soft skills to be able to describe their transferable skills to Canadian employers in order to secure employment, and also for Canadian employers to be able to recognize those transferable skills and validate the experience of internationally educated professionals, even if that work experience is not from Canada. Another large threat that I see for IEPs is at some point when they move to Canada, they will hit a point where they will have to decide between accepting a survival job in order to support themselves and continuing to pursue employment in their professional field. Now, accepting a survival job in and of itself is certainly not a problem, but it is getting stuck in that survival job that is the threat. So that's really where I focus on with IEPs, that even if they're working in a survival job, to continue to work towards their long-term goal of getting back into their professional field. And the last threat for IEPs that I will talk about is regulatory bodies. So depending on the professional field of internationally educated professionals, and depending on the amount of knowledge they have on regulatory bodies when they come to Canada, this can be a very long process for them to pursue. If they are an engineer getting registered with a PEGA or working in a medical field, until they complete this accreditation process, they are not able to work at the full level of their education and experience. And making sure that for them to keep them on a very positive note and make sure that they are still continuing to progress through their accreditation process is a big threat, because some may look at it and say, it's not worth the amount of time and cost in order to pursue this. I'm going to accept a role that doesn't utilize my education and experience. And in my opinion, it really is a net loss for both the IEP as well as the community. So that was the SWOT analysis for IEPs, and I believe we'll hold questions till the end. So I'm looking forward to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thanks a bunch, Tyler. Yeah, really interesting. Every industry comes from such a different perspective, and I always have respect for each of them, for sure. So thank you for that. Really informative. Okay, Jason from the college.
Perfect. Thanks again. I want to start by just talking a little bit about our mission. Lethbridge College inspires and facilitates learning and innovation to meet economic and social needs. And sorry, I should back up for a second. I want you to know I'm coming at this with really fresh eyes. I've only been in the role for about 2 months and a week, and it's a very good exercise for me to go through. So our offerings are broad. We range from 1 hour to 26-week programs, sushi lessons, all the way to solar installation, personal interest to very highly technical. So let's talk a little bit about the strengths, some of the practices that we're putting in place to go above and beyond. There's a large wave of interest in what we call micro credentials, which are just these short burst learnings, with badges, and you can stack them to create larger learning over time. And so we're moving into that marketplace in a big way, and also updating our systems to create a frictionless client experience. And then the other thing that we're doing is adopting an institutional lens to our approach to custom training. So previously it was usually done within our corporate and continuing education area, but we're actually now pulling on all of the academic centers and our Center for Teaching and Learning Innovation in order to make sure that those are really great programs. Some of the relationships that I want to talk about, again, internally, we have a lot of goodness in the college. So that Center for Teaching and Learning Innovation is incredibly strong, and we have the opportunity to pull on that on a daily basis, as well as our Indigenous services and our grandparents and our elders that give us a lot of wisdom when we're taking a look at all of our programming. And then there's a lot of community organizations like RINSA and EDL, the Chamber, of course. And then we work a lot with industry advisory groups. And lastly, we've started and you probably see some of the billboards around town, started a relationship with Women Building Futures out of Edmonton, and we're about to embark on our first program with them in trades in July. Our expertise in the industry, I mean, we've run non-credit programs again from 1 hour to 26 weeks. We've worked extensively in the grant-based and corporate space, and have just a suite of products that are incredibly diverse, again, from leadership to virtual reality to solar and wind project management. So we've got a very extensive catalog. Some of the barriers that I see, so, you know, COVID has been really interesting just from the perspective of there's this pull between people wanting in person and the reality of the costs associated with doing in person right now, because you have much smaller number of participants in a classroom at any given time, which changes the overall dynamic of how you make money or don't make money within these programs, right? What's stopping us from the next level? We almost have too many possibilities. So this has been really fun to just listen to, you know, Tyler and Trevor and see that you guys know your lane so incredibly well. Within our area, we've got everybody coming at us, and we've got all kinds of knowledge. And so how do you narrow that down to make sure that we're as potent as possible in our areas of expertise? And then some of the restrictions that are being faced, obviously there's downward pressure on government funding as an institution, and we work within that larger institution, so that's always going to create some pressure for us. From an opportunity perspective, what I see very clearly is, you know, this need to lean into upskilling and reskilling for the future of work. And then we're also looking very much at assessments. So how can we help employers assess their employees? How can we help employers assess for the future of work? And then how can we deliver that training and assess the skill along the way? And then again, micro-credentials are huge right now. We're part of CICAN, the governing body for colleges and institutions. And we've signed an agreement with them to make sure that the principles that we're using with micro-credentials stay the same across all of the institutions. And hopefully at some point that we'll be able to recognize all of those micro-credentials across different post-secondary institutions. Let's take a look at some of the innovations. So it's really interesting to take a look at things like LinkedIn learning and this democratization of short burst education. And that's going to have us on our toes and having to think about, you know, where do we go from here, and how do we add that value, you know, to the economy and to the social needs around us. And then, of course, that badging and ability to create stackable credits within micro-credentials are some really neat innovations. And then something that's really interesting to me is training specifically within virtual reality and augmented reality. There's a lot of studies going on right now that show you can actually reduce the amount of time that it takes to train somebody, and that they can actually pick up information in a much more meaningful way. And I'm particularly interested in this specific to human or soft skills. Because we hear over and over from our industry partners that this is an area they want us to lean into, and there's a fair amount of work going on in this. And then things like artificial intelligence is an innovation. I follow a company out of the US called Gong.ai, which is actually a sales platform where they record all of the calls of thousands and thousands of salespeople, and then are able to give data points to help us understand where to put our training efforts. So I think we'll see artificial intelligence move how we work within this space. And then lastly, high flex learning. So COVID has pushed forward very quickly the need to be adaptable in how we teach. And so we're leaning in at the college to building out high flex areas where you can have some students in the classroom, some students taking it live online, or other students taking it later on. So really looking at finding new ways to actually deliver the training. So some relationships that are being created that are new. Things like our industry relationships. Right now, we're working with the Information and Communication Tech Council to take a look at technology. They've been around for, I think, 27 years and do a lot of work within the tech space. And then what's interesting is I'm seeing some emerging relationships come out of the woodworks with nonprofits who have that downward pressure on funding, who have to think about new ways to exist. And so they're coming and looking for partnerships with the college, which is really interesting. So some of the threats, regulations that are hindering. So again, that downward pressure on government funding. And then just emerging market in micro-credentials. It's not a regulation, but again, the PSIs are post-secondary institutions working together in order to make sure that we have an offering that works across multiple institutions. Supply and demand, I found this really interesting. So there's a ton of supply, and it kind of goes in waves with COVID. So as people start to feel like, oh, things are lifting a little bit, all of a sudden a ton of people are coming out of the woodwork, and then it's contracting again as we see restrictions come back in play. And largely that's based on this sentiment that people want to be doing their training in person. So we really need to take a look at that and go, okay, what are the other offerings that we can create that builds comfort in companies still wanting to invest in their employees over the coming months, right? And then lastly, what's changed your strategic direction? So a lot of industry input. We finished not too long ago the Southern Region Skills Assessment, and there's really two main categories that I see. That technical, which is around upskilling and reskilling, and then the human skills or the soft skills remain a hot topic, and every single industry partner talks about that on a regular basis. And then the other thing that's changed our strategic direction again is that ease of access to low-cost training. So an example would be basics of Excel. You can now get that on LinkedIn for free at your fingertips in less than 2 clicks. So we need to rethink some of what we do on a regular basis and reimagine how we deliver those programs to remain relevant. So that's all I have for now. Thank you very much.
Terrific. Thank you, Jason. That's good. And welcome to your new job. Sound like you've been there forever. Okay, thank you. Ryan.
Good morning. I'm just hoping I could share my screen here. See if that will work.
You should be able to.
Did that work?
We just see a blank screen, but it says you have started sharing your screen. So it's just you're on the wrong page.
Yes, and it's going to create me PowerPoint. It creates me a little bit of an issue. So just hang tight.
Okay, there you go.
Is it there? It's
Yeah.
not showing. It is, okay.
Yeah.
Just to double check, you can see the slideshow.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks everybody. It's just not changing on my screen, so I will just hang tight with me 1 second. Okay, is that changing on your screen?
Yes, it is.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you to the previous speakers. We don't get together as often very much to talk about our industry, and it's really exciting to hear some of the things that are going on in the different areas. I'm going to speak a little bit today about the work that Teamworks does in the field of career planning, career development, and in the workforce. So some of those things that we get into is Teamwork Training Limited is made up of 3 business units. So we have our Teamworks Career Center, we have our Select People Solutions, and our Teamworks Training Institute. So our Teamworks Career Center is the one business unit that works strictly with our provincial and federal government on delivering services on their behalf, mainly focused on getting the existing work-ready workforce back working, and typically that's unemployed Albertans, and working with employers of programs to help get and attract or build their workforce. We've just currently moved into our new office space, so we're excited about that, and we're excited about getting back to the point where we can get together and celebrate, and look forward to having everyone over. We're on the 3rd floor of the building, and it's such a neat historical building. And one of the fun facts around that is it was actually the initial hub for immigration and labor and Service Canada. And so a lot of the time, especially from an immigration standpoint of when people would arrive in our city, this would be one of the first stops they would make to get connected to employment. So it feels really good to be back at some of the foundational spots of when services for employment existed here. Something that's our mantra a little bit that drives a little bit of where we go is the future is not someplace we are going, but one we are creating. And I think that if you talk to anybody in career development here, that's what gets everybody up in the morning. That's what drives everyone, is the ability to help people succeed and where they're going. And many people come and walk through our doors when they're struggling, or they're down, or they're lost employment, or struggling in life, or with other issues. And when they walk through our doors as service providers, we're here to help build a future. And that's one of the exciting passions and things that we get to do as service providers. A little bit of the Career Center. We are celebrating 30 years this year. So that's an incredible feat of 30 years of working specifically with the provincial and federal government on re-employing Albertans. That's would be something that we look forward to celebrating with the community this year. Over that period of time, we've hit and supported and helped serve 35,000 Southern Albertans in re-employment and getting career planning and getting redirected in their careers. Our main target group at this time is really people that, at least for our funded programs, are the ready to enable, willing and able workforce. In a lot of the times our current programs, somebody has to be on EI or EI eligible, means that they qualified or could qualify for EI over the last 5 years. So it's narrowed in a little bit more, which wasn't as restrictive, but there is some space for people that don't come under that criteria, but that's a large part of the work that we do right now. We have over 100 years of staff experience in career development. Some of the programs we're currently offering is transitions to employment services called Project Hire. And that's to help unemployed Albertans just reconnect, get some basic training, get help, get some career planning, and connect with employers. Workplace training, and that's a program for both Albertans and for employers that promotes that some of the best training happens on an employer's site or within the employment. And so employers can have access to programs that help provide some wage subsidy and also to cover off training costs by hiring an unemployed Albertan and helping transition their current experience into the specific skills and knowledge that employer requires. An integrated training is office and accounting essentials. So that's really giving people in career transition that are unemployed the opportunity to come in, update their skills, get familiar with the fundamental skills of office administration and accounting, and then connect with employers through those means. The other exciting program that we have is the Careers in Supply Chain, another integrated training program. So this is where people come in from all different backgrounds, and as long as you're over 18 and interested in being in the workforce, this gives you some critical skill sets in supply chain management, including micro-credential with the Canadian Institute of Traffic and Transportation, and then therefore a diverse amount of skill sets to go and integrate out to the community, to our local employers. Labor market, thought I'd just touch base on this a little bit. It really is an exciting future here I see in Southern Alberta. Here in the immediate surrounding area, we have about a population of about 130,000 people. Our economy continues to show strength, where the Alberta Recovery Plan is really about building diversity within our communities and within our labor force, within our industry. And Lethbridge is really a role model community around achieving that goal, and it continues to show our strength. Last year we had a record harvest and had the strongest growth in exports of anywhere in Canada, plus 16% of exports increase during a pandemic year over 2019. One of the real interesting things, and due to the work that EDL is doing, a fantastic work in getting better labor market information for us, we are always lumped in with Medicine Hat and the whole South region of looking at our labor stats. Well, this is now starting to change, and they've worked hard to go ahead and actually get the Lethbridge and area specific labor stuff. And it really shows us some very important stuff. So Lethbridge and Medicine Hat combined right now is at 10.4%. The new stats quite aren't out, or I don't have them kind of updated, but this goes into the end of February. And so 10.4%. So now when we take a look at Lethbridge, we're at 7.7% unemployment. So there's a significant different story there than oftentimes what we think. And that plays a major part for figuring out what we're doing for workforce development or providing services. And you compare that to Alberta, which is 10.7%, and Canada 9.4%. So currently we are the strongest region in Alberta for employment. And I think that just goes to the strength of our community, the strength of our employers, the diversity of our employment, and also to those wonderful network of service providers that are on the call today that do work every day to get people working. So good job, everybody. Some of the strengths that we talk about, one of the things in career development and in our community, we have an excellent network, and we always had a very long-term excellent network or ecosystem of service providers that support this. You've heard from some of those folks here today, very intelligent, very knowledgeable folks that are doing great work. And there's additional people within that. I think that we even on the call today, we have Training Inc. On the call, and they're right behind us at 29 years of serving this community, and just a fantastic group of people that are doing great work. And Jillian Nish with Executive Serve, again, I don't know the exact years for Jillian, but it has been in the 20 plus, I believe, and does fantastic work there. So there's a fantastic ecosystem of people that understand career development and getting people employed and working with employers. I think the one thing to mention before I go on to that is all these organizations, one of the challenges that we have, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, is we're not at the forefront. We don't celebrate the success. Not everybody knows when we're touching a situation, because our success isn't about us. Our success, we're just ambassadors of funding programs and there to support Albertans. So it's often those people that are going out and getting jobs on their own or connecting that are benefiting from the services, but there's not always a connection in the community of where help support that person or where the help for that employer was. So, many of these people do fantastic work that we never as a community really hear about, because all we do is see the success of the individuals. So that's my shout out to everybody on this call that's part of that community. Just an incredible group of people. Economy and employment is optimistic as we go forward. We're an agricultural driven, and we have a high government sector type of public sector. We have very good diversity, and agri-foods and agriculture is a priority in Alberta right now, a priority for investment, and needed around the world. So we're set up for to a point where we need to plan for labor shortages and struggles as we continue to come out of the pandemic. We have great programs for upgrading skills, re-employment services for, and I'm specifically talking about EI eligible unemployed Albertans. You heard from some of the other target groups today. So, there's programs out there through the Ministry of Labor, of the Canada Job Grant, workplace training, which is what I talked about earlier. Some of these other programs that help train essential occupational skills and then get those unemployed people connected to the job market. And I would also say the procurement process is good for Albertans. The process that we go through in helping, we have to bid on services. And so there's an RFP process, and it's very transparent. It really goes ahead and makes sure that we don't have a lot of duplication or overlap within the way we provide services, but also for Albertans that we don't get paid out our full contracts in delivering these services unless we hit employment outcomes. And that means not only at the end of programs that people have to find work and where we're supporting them, but that means we also get monitored 90 days after to see if they're working. And if those people didn't find jobs or they didn't maintain those jobs, we do not pull out the full dollars, and we self-subsidize those programs. So there's some excellent protection there for Albertans. Weaknesses, what we take a look at is there has been a real shift throughout there of focusing on training over career planning and job search. And that's there's definitely a benefit to that in upgrading the skill sets, but there's been a really reduction in providing services to Albertans to do career planning, self-assessment, self-awareness, connecting with the labor market, and learning job search skills. So that is much more narrow, isolated right now. Another is that ties into the investment of career planning and employability and job search skills, where we're really focused on occupational skills and not or less focused a little bit on the job search and the career planning skills. Tougher to access labor market for job seekers. It's just you think it'd be easier in today's world, but it actually has become tougher to get really good labor market and for people that are unemployed to be able to have those places to go. The central hub no longer exists. We really had some good infrastructure to go ahead and anybody Albertan could go and stop off at the provincial building and connect and help get directed to the right service provider, no matter what their need were. That's no longer as robust as it used to be. And in fact, it's been closed the whole time of the pandemic. So it's been closed for a year now. And even the scope and the availability of the resources in that when it does open is much more reduced, and a much more focus on income support application. So that makes it a lot tougher for someone to go and know where to get started. The other areas here, that communication and connection overall, so it's much tougher. We used to be able to connect with people that were on EI through Service Canada. That's very much restricted now. We can't reach out as much. We do have some availability to do that, but it is very time-consuming process that they have in place. There used to be always very good career planning and job search workshops, just the ability for the general community. Didn't have to be unemployed. You could be unemployed. You could be at any age. You could come from any background, and just generally attend some general workshops to get you going, and then be able to connect to the supports that help you focus. And those have been those no longer exist to a great capacity. The weakness also is in just the communication between the three ministries. The ministries were divided into labor and immigration, advanced ed, and community support services. And those departments are still growing and transitioning. And we're seeing a little bit of silo stuff of communication, not necessarily happening as effectively with those groups. And contract challenges, I think you heard a little bit about. Trevor was speaking a little bit. They've gone to shorter contracts, which shorter contracts, different type of employment expectations. And that makes it hard for larger programs or these delivery programs to have the right space, the right staff when you're getting a 1 or 2 year contract and trying to plan and then rewriting proposals after that. Opportunities, you heard me talk a little bit of our economy, and that's going to create some wonderful opportunities and pressure on labor. Also, the opportunities is continue to create an agile and skilled workforce with new funding and technology. We heard from the college there, and Jason talk a little bit about the introduction of AI and some of those type of things. Those are going to be game changers. Work experience and getting people to go on work experience sites or have access to sites is a difficult thing, time consuming, and there's a lot of issues to be able to get people into, especially some of our industries here. We're starting to see the creation of simulated work experience environments using AI, and that is incredible because we can start creating mock work environments and using that for skill development. There's a great opportunity for us to develop best practices and focusing on that existing workforce. And the college talked about that here today a little bit, is we need to really continue to focus on how we upskill those folks and new immigrants that come in as well, and not just the new workforce that's coming up. Also, we have great opportunity to build stronger collaboration with the career services and our post-secondary expertise and training. I think there's other areas of the province that are doing this really well. And I think there's some tremendous collaboration to take that career knowledge and expertise and integrate it with our world-class post-secondary training facilities that we have. And then further opportunities that we integrate career planning and labor market awareness from middle school up to high school to our current workforces and to new Canadians. That career planning and that labor market awareness is an essential tool for them to be able to connect with the careers they can be effective at and interested in, and employers that are hiring. Opportunities also just for us to increase our communication between government departments and service providers, and find better ways to help create opportunities for the people that need services to find out where those services exist. And last are threats. Just uninformed, we have a ton of people out there that need services that don't know where to begin, and don't know how to access their service. Employers and people in this community that their services there for them, and they're just not aware of them. Centralization of services is a threat. We're seeing that within the ministries, they're doing much more centralized decision making. So we're even having decisions made on procurement or RFPs in this region of selection teams that are not led by people out of this labor market. And that's concerning. We don't know the results of long-term of how that turns out, but that is something we need to be aware of. Duplication of services. I think Lethbridge has been always really good at not duplicating services, but there's a risk of that, especially with the implementations of potential new programs and the rush of that implementation. It creates an environment that we might have a lot of duplication, and then that creates confusion and not as effective of service providing. And then the identity of service providers. You talked to me about that, or I talked to you about that a little bit earlier, is our work is done to support people. So we need to do a little bit better job as service providers to wave the banner and make sure the ecosystem of career planning and career development is well known in this community and well taken advantage of. And then we need to be able to see how do we continue to get the focus back on career development and career planning and job search skills, and just not on training. So thank you very much. I put a lot of information out there, so thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ryan. And certainly, I always think about my journey, and you know, I think about the community advocates like all of you that support people that are in need, right, of finding work, and that's how I came through my journey when I first came into Lethbridge, was through a program through Teamworks, and really without those support services, there's no way that I would have found the job that I did. So it's interesting. So thank you, Ryan.
I got my screen set up to work for the PowerPoint, but now I just can't get to the stop sharing. So hopefully you guys can stop the share there.
Stop the share. You just throw a picture of you up there. Dominica, do you know how to do that? Okay.
Are you just working on that?
Okay. Oh, I think you got it. Oh no. Okay, well, You can't just go at the top there, Ryan, and there should be a red button that says stop.
Yeah, I
Stop.
just can't, I'm trying to figure out, because I set my screen up to, so I could handle it, and I just now I'm struggling to get to that screen, but I'll get it figured out, carry on.
Okay. All right. All right, Alma. Are you, oh yeah, there you are. And just hit your I think you're on mute.
Be on mute.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's been interesting listening to everybody's presentations. And my presentation is going to be sort of at the opposite end of the spectrum compared to all the technological and all of these things that we're talking about, because we work with newcomers that are coming to Lethbridge. Again, 30 years, we started about the same time, Training Inc. and everybody did. And so we're celebrating 30 years as well. About 30 years of language training and an employment program for 20 years. It just made sense. Students coming out of language programs, how are they going to find work? So we started a program to help newcomers look for work. We work with clients that are zero English to clients who are university graduates as well. We have focused more lately on clients who are refugees. Clients need a lot of assistance with finding employment. They often have not gone to school. They have worked, but maybe just on their farm or something. A lot of them have been in refugee camps. So we have clients, for example, that are in our language classes that maybe after a year of being in a language class, they have learned to print their name, maybe, and know a few numbers and maybe speak a few simple sentences about themselves. And they're saying, we want to work. Or the others are saying, we need more English to go to work. But if you've never been to school, you've never worked in a formal job, it's pretty difficult. So when we started our program years ago, and we still sort of continue today the same way, and that is with making the program as individual as possible. Its services are offered on an individual basis so that we can tailor the program to whatever a particular client needs. And that's really the strength of the program, is what does that individual person need? And because we have a language program as well, especially with the low-level learners, we can often combine what they might be learning in their language classes to what they're doing in the employment program, and we can share resources. We can share the expertise of the instructors, together with what the employment counselors are doing. So what we have found is the clients that started with us like 20 years ago in the program, when their relatives come to Canada or they have sponsored family members to come to Canada, then they just automatically come to our school and say, okay, we need to go look for a job, or we need language classes. Depending where they come from, some newcomers are ready to go to work. They just say, please just help me go get a job. I don't need language. And then the others are saying, I need to go to language classes, but I want a job. And then of course, there's others that say, I don't want a job because I don't have any English. But anyway, the strength is that we can really vary the program and make it as individual as we need to. We have our targeted clients out there. We work closely with Lethbridge Family Services. So when government-sponsored refugees come, they're referred to our language program and then later to our employment program. We've had strong support from the various levels of government that we've been working with in our programming. We, in our employment program, the funding is shared between the federal government and the provincial government. So there's been a lot of support for the program. And over the years, we have built a lot of partnerships with employers in the community. It takes a while because a lot of our clients really have low language levels. But as employers learn, if you take that extra time to train these clients, they probably are going to stay with you a lot longer. So it's a lot of extra training, but then your reward is you've got a reliable employee who's going to stay with you. One of the strengths too is the fact that we're a smaller agency. So we're able to make changes quickly. So if we decide something needs to be changed, and I'm the boss, I don't have a board of directors, so it's kind of nice. So we just make the changes. So it's really easy on a regular basis to say, you know, can we change this? This isn't working, or can we do something different? And we just go ahead and make the changes and then look at it after and evaluate and see if it's working or it's not working. But that's really been an advantage as well. One of the things, our philosophy, I should also say, is the fact that we teach people how to look for a job. We don't believe in giving them jobs. We want them to learn how to get a job. The ones that are involved in career planning, we want them to do the work that's involved. We'll give them the guidance, structure, but we want them to do the work, because if you do the work, you know, the rewards are so much greater for you at the end. Plus, you're not going to be coming back to us every time you lose a job and say, okay, I lost my job or I got fired, please help me again. Now, one of the weaknesses is, of course, with the kind of clients that most of the clients are that we work with, is the fact that because of their literacy skills, you know, they don't have a lot of language and they don't have computer skills. So when the pandemic came, of course, we had to quickly change the way we delivered our programming. So that was challenging at first, because if you can't really read and you don't really know how to use a computer and you can't really write, well, how do you get the services? And so we had to think about that for our language classes as well as our employment program. So we had to do a lot of Skyping, we did a lot of oral work, we did a lot of practice phone interviews, you know, that kind of thing. We made a lot of homework packages with our clients at this stage. It's a lot of homework practices that they can do on their own. You know, explore your neighborhood, find out what kind of employment opportunities there might be in your neighborhood. Learn to take the bus at various times this year. Sometimes you don't want to take it. But we had to come up with activities that they could do so they're still involved in some sort of thinking about employment, but they can't be sitting in class and learning about it. So then we did that online for a while, and in September we went back into in-person services again. So that was really good, and clients are saying, yes, this is what we need. And then just before Easter again, we went back down to online services again because of the rise in the number of cases of COVID that we had here in the city. And of course, then because of the COVID problem this last year, the number of immigrants coming to Canada has greatly decreased. And so we don't have the numbers of newcomers coming in this year that we would normally have. But it gave us the opportunity to spend maybe more time with the ones that were here and do different activities with them. And then plus a lot of our clients, not a lot, but several of our clients had been laid off. And so then they came back to us then. And so we continued to work with them in developing their soft skills and developing some of their reading skills and other skills they might need for their programming. So we were able to do that, but the numbers certainly went down. Again, the problem is because of the language skills, how do you develop a program and how do you deliver services? But what we have found is if clients want to work, they're going to find a way to work. So we've had to do a lot of looking at work sites and employers who are willing to take our clients. And what we found is there was that time at the beginning when there was no jobs, and then all of a sudden a lot of people went on the different government programs that were available. And then when employers started starting up their businesses again and people weren't coming back to work, we would get phone calls and they would be saying, okay, we need workers, please, we need workers, we need, we laid up 100 workers here, we laid up 100 workers there. So what was interesting, so a lot of our clients who wouldn't have had the opportunity necessarily to get in some of these other businesses, they found jobs. In fact, February, March, I mean, everybody that was looking for a job with us found a job because they were able to enter some of these businesses that were looking and for workers, and their workers weren't coming back. So that was really a positive side of the pandemic for us. In terms of opportunities, when we started our program, we were one of the first agencies in Alberta to kind of say, you know, anybody that wants to look for work, they should be able to work if they want to look for work. And I mean, people usually say, well, clients, if their language skills are really weak, how can they work? How can they get a job? They need to have this level of language. Well, of course they do for certain jobs, but we also need the jobs out there at the lower levels of the economic scale. So we need people to work at other places like the food processing industries, which is where normally a lot of our clients find work. But they can start at those kinds of places and then they can move into other places to work. So again, they're looking at what are the opportunities for them in the future, not just for what's there today. But people say, well, you know, they all go to work at Sunrise or someplace like that. And it's like, well, somebody has to work there. We all like to eat chicken. We all like to eat pork. So there are places for some of the people that we work with to go and get jobs that are going to support themselves and their family, but they can use it also as a stepping stone to get to other places. Again, and when they go to work, we can continue to supply them with language training. We can continue to go on the job site and help them. If the employer says we need translation or if we need somebody to help out on the job site, we're able to do that as well. It's a bit more difficult right now, but we can provide all those extra supports. And in the training program that we run, we can also do work experiences and mentorships and volunteer work and things like that. So there's lots of opportunities still for our program to grow, especially as we get more immigrants coming in over the next year. You know, once the borders open, I heard there was like 4,000 refugees, like just waiting to come in as soon as that border opens. They're ready, they've got their papers, they're ready to come. So in terms of our threats, again, it's the issue of our language. Our clients, like doing online applications, can't do them. Even filling out regular applications is difficult. So we're always looking at ways to or tools that our clients can use to apply for jobs, to do further research, that kind of thing. So online work has been a challenge for them. We're also, of course, looking at the fact that because of our clients don't have a lot of high-level skills, and so jobs are disappearing with automation and all of that kind of thing. So that's always a challenge. But they're doing well right now, and we're hopeful that with the newcomers coming in the next maybe 6 months or 8 months, that we'll be able to get them out there and looking for employment and finding jobs. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Alma. It's so interesting. You know, I really liked how you said you want to teach them how to look for a job. And you know, when I went through the program, gosh, that would have been 10.5 years ago. You know, they don't teach that stuff in high school. That's, you know, they teach calculus because we use that every day, but they don't teach the stuff that helps you survive. So thank you very much. That's awesome. Okay, we've got about 15 minutes. Are there any burning questions out there that you'd like to ask any of our presenters? Okay, one quick question that I was wondering, you know, during the conversation, during both Tyler and Alma's discussion, was the number of newcomers that have come to Canada over the last year. So have any come in, or has it been really, really restricted? Like, did it just kind of shut down?
Well, we've had a lot of like family sponsored clients coming into the country. They've still been coming. They were clients that had all their paperwork done before, and they were able to come in. So like a lot of the clients that sponsored their families from places like Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, they've been coming, and not large numbers of them, but they have been been coming. And the interesting thing about it is, I mean, those are, a lot of them are like private sponsorships, they were church sponsorships, they were family sponsorship, not necessarily government sponsored refugees coming. And so those clients that are family sponsored and privately sponsored often are really want to quickly go get a job. And so they're very motivated to look for work. So when they're brought to our school, they just kind of walk in and say, please help me to go look for a job. That's what I want. So we did have some of them. We didn't have the huge numbers we've had before, but certainly we did have some of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and to follow up on what Elma mentioned, government-assisted refugee numbers were quite low, obviously due to COVID and being able to come. But we did see other pathways that were kind of increasing to make up for that. So lots more, for example, individuals that were here on temporary permits getting permanent residency. So these were individuals that previously were not eligible for our services that did gain eligibility. And also for those that are coming through some of the economic classes, a lot of them have been already approved to come to Canada. They have essentially their permanent residency. They're just literally waiting to get into the country. So they are working with a few organizations in Canada that do what's called pre-arrival settlements. So they're working on a lot of the similar skills that I would provide, but just doing so before coming to Canada. So the challenge right now is just getting to the country. And so for once a lot of the borders open up, we're expecting kind of a large volume to all come at once instead of, kind of slowly coming throughout the year. So they are coming, they have been approved. It's just a matter of when borders start to open.
And I would guess, Tyler, especially with your educated, your IEPs, I guess you refer to them, like I've spoken in your groups a couple of times before, highly educated and smart. And so I guess it's about finding those associations, like, for example, lawyers and doctors and accountants, to get that accreditation here. But that, I would guess, is often a big barrier.
It is, yeah. And another challenge for IEPs, for example, on Friday, we have a fairly large presentation that's coming up to a lot of those clients that are approved for permanent residency but have not yet moved to Canada. And of course, it's difficult for them to start those accreditation processes because it is provincially regulated. So if they're not sure, hey, I'm going to come to Alberta or I'm going to go to Ontario, that will determine which regulatory body they need to apply for. So it's certainly a challenge.
Interesting. And Trevor, you had mentioned that does anybody else, I have a lot of questions, so I could keep going for hours. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay. So yeah, Trevor, you mentioned that you're just starting to reach into the Indigenous community a little bit more. When did you start doing that, and how did you open those doors and connect with the elders? And because ultimately, if you have the support of the elders, right, that makes a big difference.
Well, we've always had strong ties to the Indigenous community. We've been fortunate, like approximately 40% of our clientele historically have been Indigenous. But what we saw when we were applying for the Youth Employment and Skills Strategy was that there was two populations that had different unique barriers in our programs and in finding employment, and that was our newcomers and our Indigenous youth. So we wanted to create programming that met the specific needs of those demographics. And so for both of them, we actually did community consultation. For the newcomers, we were able to do more focus groups, just given the time frame of when we built that program. So that was during the summertime, where we engaged a whole wide cross section of our newcomers. And then in our Indigenous program, we actually hired a consultant to do a lot of the groundwork for us, to reach out, connect to elders, connect to potential participants, parents, community members, looking at, well, what needs do our Indigenous youth have in our community, and how can we as an organization, bridge this gap between these two worlds that in some senses can be seen as opposed, but where we can actually do some work to be that bridge in the middle. And so our instructor, Bonnie, she spent a lot of time connecting with different Indigenous groups. One, we wanted to recognize that, of course, we are on Blackfoot territory. However, we also have a wide cross-section of different Indigenous cultures in our community, and it's not just the Blackfoot that reside here. So we have elders from all the different communities participating. We also have knowledge keepers and different land-based learning. So different things that help bridge culture. And to give you an example is our first group that we just launched. We have 3 individuals who identify as Indigenous that had never had the opportunity to be connected to their culture because of their own experiences in the care systems and different aspects of society. And this has given them an opportunity to just create some initial relationship building, which we know in the research is really phenomenal for recidivism rates. So we're dealing with crime or addiction or continuity in employment. All of those things are great when we're connecting to culture. So so reaching out to the community and really having them guide us, I think, is the main piece of how this program is going to started and will continue to be successful as we will continue to engage them.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you. Erin, you have a question.
Thanks, Tara. I'm sorry I couldn't get to my reactions button quick enough before, so and it changed on me. Updates. Hi, everybody. My name is Erin Crane. I work with Economic Development Lethbridge. And my question, and Trevor, I'm so glad you had that comment, because it really is about that community engagement. So my question to all of you is, how important is that? Where are the gaps, and what do you see as some of the ways to maybe not fix it, but to help make it better?
Brian, do you want to take a first stab?
I was hoping just to be able to say ditto after I went after everybody else. Erin, I think that that is a real robust question, but I think you see the expertise around this call here today and the understanding of their clientele and what works. And Elma, I can't say enough and drink the Kool-Aid all day long about training people to, first you need people that need to find, that want to work. And then people that don't, you want to help them get to the point of realizing or for themselves a drive to go to work. So that gap is first there is connecting and making sure we're communicating well with people. And as Elma said, then it really comes down to teach them how to fish and teach them how to job search, teach them how to connect with employers. So there's things that we need to continue to do like this to engage with the community. We need to listen. We need to invite community leaders in, connect with the chamber, connect with EDL, connect with our surrounding area groups, our new immigrants or Indigenous, all those things. So I think that the more that we can get together and have those conversations, it allows us to operate with real labor market information and what the real challenges are to what our employers need, so we can help design and develop programs to transition that workforce to the needs of employers. The other thing is, and that's why I really highly respect Elma's point, is the more that we go ahead and create resources and we create knowledge within all levels of people that are looking for work, then they become their own mechanism to connect. And I'm a true believer in that as well. Let's empower our people. So yes, one, it helps them be more effective at the time when they're in need. But as Elma said, it empowers them for the future to keep doing, whether that's a promotion internal into their own employer, or they're looking at other employment opportunities in the future. Let's train those people to be able to connect and be involved in our community, get them connected to the chamber, get them connected to EDL, get them connected to different ways that they can do some of their own gap analysis. And employers respect that. Employers respect people that show interest in their business ask good questions and say, hey, I would really like to work for you, or what's your challenges? So I think it's a combination of us doing good work and empowering our people. You're on mute, Tara.
Oh, no, I don't. Just before anybody else jumps in, Trevor and Alma, if you wouldn't mind putting your emails in. Oh, I see you just did, Trevor, but Alma, put your email in the chat box down at the bottom there, just so people can reach out afterwards. Thank you for your response, Ryan. Is there anybody else that would like to join in on that?
Yeah, I can jump in for a little bit, and I talked about it a little bit just in my presentation, but awareness is a big area for both the community as well to learn about, because at least for the demographic that I work with, there are very unique challenges that if employers are not aware of those challenges, it's very difficult to support the integration of newcomers into the workplace. We kind of talk about who adapts to who, and yes, there's responsibility on job seekers, specifically newcomer job seekers, to adapt to working in Canada, but there's also some responsibility on the community and employers to help facilitate that integration as well. So sessions such as this, where we can talk about some of those unique challenges and get that information directly to employers, is vital, because all of us here that are career developers, we are not employers. So we are working with one half of the equation, and in order to have successful outcomes for everybody, it really comes down to awareness for both parties.
Great, thank you. Anybody else, Trevor or Alma?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that you know, at Fifth, we've done a pretty good job reaching out and connect communities. We've worked with 1,200 plus businesses in Southern Alberta over the last 15 years. But I think there is more, there's an opportunity there as to how can we go out and listen to the needs of our employers and bring that, like just like Tyler was saying, bridge that gap between that demographic and our youth population, or our different populations that we're working with. I think there's unique challenges and needs within the different industries, and you know, to be able to see that there are ways that as a community we can help navigate where these gaps are and help facilitate, you know, these transitions for more people into employment, or to meet the specific needs of specific employers. I think there's an opportunity there. So you know, I think there takes some work of just you know, continuously connecting as a community and reaching out. We do really well in the nonprofit world, reaching out and connecting with each other, but that gap between nonprofit and business is often missed, or often seen as oppositional sometimes. So we can do a lot more better work in ensuring that the voices and the pairing gets you know, becomes a reality, and that we're working more closely together.
Excellent, thank you. Alma, do you have anything else you want to add?
Not really. I think it's been said. Yeah.
Okay. No, and I recognize we're 4 minutes over, and we've had to lose a couple of people, but thank you so much, all of the presenters that are still standing. And yeah, really appreciate it. And on behalf of the chamber, thank you for being a part of everybody in the room. And yeah, look for more events that we do have on online. Is there anything else anyone would like to say? Dominica, Ashley from the chamber.
I just want to thank you, Tara, for taking on the hosting of this. You did a wonderful job. So thank you for hopping in on that.
Oh, well, anytime I can talk, I won't turn that down.
One final just comment for myself. Thank you, Chamber, for organizing this and a chance to reconnect with the other service providers that we haven't really seen a lot of each other over this last little while. But I know everybody's been working hard and getting people employed, and we're having success, all of us, and that's great. I would just say that, hey, this is wonderful today. A lot of it was, helping get updated of who we are and what we're doing. I think that if the Chamber could help do this some more with us, that we can actually dive in and bring our expertise together and find out ways, further ways, some tangible takeaways that continues to strengthen our ecosystem of career development. And I think that's really important timing of the Alberta Jobs Program, they're calling it, is ready to be launched. And that's great, but I'm also a little bit nervous because there's not a lot of dialogue, at least on our part, around where is that going or what are they doing. So as everybody sees here today is the expertise in this room of working with people and the knowledge and all those things, that when there's brand new programs being introduced, should be great to help have input on where those programs are going or the need or how do they apply here. So you always kind of cross your fingers and close your eyes and go, oh, I hope this fits into what really works here. So if we can continue to create opportunities to get together at this network and talk about some stuff, and maybe that way we can have some influence upwards for those voices to have some influence on where future programs going.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and certainly, there's people on the call too that would be interested in taking part that that weren't presenters. So I think if anybody's interested in continuing some conversation, maybe you can reach out to whoever your contact is at the Chamber, just to kind of give them the heads up, and then we can certainly work towards that. That would be fantastic. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Have a great Tuesday, and we'll see you somewhere. Thank you.
Have a good day.